There's one more chance my dogs will bark.
Cool. Recording in progress, according to the robot voice. Guys, we are officially back, and I am super happy to announce that this is the 8th edition of Product Hackers. We ran 7 last year. We actually had one pre-lockdown and everything. It was under a different brand name that was in person at a Cloud Guru's offices. Feels like a lifetime ago. But, you know, we thought, what the hell? The ability to share, the ability to bring community together, which is what AllSquares does. You know, we should be able to do that online and through webinars and through meetups. Product Hackers, effectively, we started it way back when, but the idea is through community, we are sharing ideas and we bring community leaders together effectively to talk about, I guess, war stories, tell stories about something around a particular topic, and to kind of explain, you know, some of the things that they've done from a strategic sense, how they've been able to overcome this, but also get participants involved and to chat through such concepts and to really just be able to share ideas and talk in an open, inclusive forum. So without further ado, we are presented by AllSquares, and AllSquares, sorry, I guess, is a proud partner and presents Product Hackers. But what is AllSquares, Julian? If you could give us the 2-minute elevator pitch and not the 30-minute elevator pitch, the 2-minute elevator pitch, but what is AllSquares?
I'll try my best. I mean, we're very much, I mean, we're a recruitment business at heart. We don't talk about recruitment a lot, though. We talk about talent, we talk about partnerships, we talk about working with people and for people, and we're just trying to solve problems along the journey whenever we partner with the clients. So, you know, it's taking us to work with some tiny businesses of 2 or 3 people all the way through to, and in Catch, where Morgan is at the moment, that is certainly not a 2 or 3 people operation. Ultimately, you know, we just want to have good partnerships and solve talent problems, and whatever needs to be done around that, we do. So it goes from talent strategy through to software implementation, through to hiring, obviously, and building all the processes that are required around that to be successful. Yeah, we've just turned 5, which I'm very happy about.
Ooh.
And yeah, hopefully we'll have another good 5 years.
Yeah, cheers to that. The context of this conversation, or the theme for the night, is the difficulty right now surrounding senior engineering or technology talent in the market, especially in Australia. For myself, if you talk to any recruitment consultant or anyone at AllSquares for that matter, and you know, they'll be able to tell you some of the craziest things that they've seen in the last 18 months that just haven't happened before. And it's a topic of conversation I see all over the place on LinkedIn. Lots of statuses about it. It's a super topical area of conversation, and that leads us to the night, which effectively is it's a difficult market to hire. And what are you doing to stand out? What are you doing to attract the hard to finds? What are you doing to retain as well? Just to set the scene, I guess, and a little bit of context around that. But Jules, from a recruitment sense, and obviously repping AllSquares, but why do you think things are the way they are? Why is it so difficult? You know, it's always been difficult, I think, otherwise we wouldn't be in a job, but why is it extra difficult right now?
I wish I had some actual data around everything, but I don't. And there's a bunch of people, you know, trying to gather that sort of stuff at the moment. But if we look at what we're hearing, the first thing I think is just the borders are shut, and it's really not helping in terms of, you know, people coming into the country. You know, I think if we look at the talents that we've placed over the last 5 years with AllSquares and 12 plus years of doing this job, there's always been newcomers into the country, and it was a very regular thing. You know, like we'll help someone with a visa, or we'll place someone on a contract if they were on a working holiday visa and the likes. So that's probably the first thing that I would say. The second one is everyone's a tech company now, you know, and I think, you know, the last couple of years we've worked with a bunch of businesses that were never tech businesses. And you think about Reese Plumbing, which is a plumbing business, they've transformed themselves into a massive tech business. You think about, the likes of Laminex, which again, is a kitchen and plastic company. They've got a massive tech team. And that's just a couple of examples that come to mind now. And these guys know they need to transform. They need to move really fast, and they've got money. And obviously you've got the banks on top of that. You've got your telcos and all that type of very large businesses that are sucking out a lot of talent and creating big demand for contractors, which are, also increasing permanent salary demand. And then there's just, I think, much bigger investments happening, and again, I don't have exact data. I'm sure a quick Google would have given me the answers, but there's a lot of, Series A a few years ago was in the couple, 2-3 mil, and now we're seeing there's some 5s, some 8s, some 10s. And now we're seeing much bigger Series Bs happening. We're seeing a lot of 20, 30, 40 million. That's always, there's always been investments in Australia, of course, but there's just more and more and more. And then I also have the feeling that, there was a backlog from last year where, there was everyone paused for a while, everyone freaked out around March, April, May. Some businesses took the opportunity to carry on and to hire a lot at that time. And it was hard to find people because people didn't want to move jobs. So, all these things combined, we find ourselves in a situation where there's just a lot of roles everywhere. Everyone's growing teams, everyone is transforming. The digital transformation is another thing that's worth mentioning. I think even across government, I think they've just realized that now is the time to be online because everyone's stuck at home and everyone has to do everything online. Australia Post has had to shut their centers for 4 days because they can't cope with the amount of parcels they have to deal with because there's so much ordering online. Keen to hear your thoughts on that, Morgan. There's just a lot going on. There's a lot going on. So hopefully it will calm down early next year when the borders reopen and people start traveling a bit more freely. But I'm not sure it will solve all the problems because
I was going to ask the question actually, Jules, while you're there, just out of curiosity, I just want to hear your thoughts and for everyone else's sake, but do you think this is sustainable? Is it going to keep going the way it's going, you reckon? Or what are we going to see in the next 6 to 12 months?
I don't know. We've been talking about the, real estate bubble for the last 20 years and it's never decreased. So, is it going to be the same? I don't know, but it's got to calm down at some point. But if you see salaries in the US, it's very, very different than what it is here. And that's why some US companies are setting up shops in Australia because they can hire senior engineers on 100K less and what they've got to pay in the US.
Yeah, absolutely. Sweet. Well, thank you for that, Jules.
That's okay.
I'm going to kick it off and pass it over to you. And as the host for the night, I'd love for you to introduce the speakers and I think Morgan's going to be going first, but I'm going to turn my camera off for now. Sweet, there you go.
Thank you. So Morgan will start. So we've got Morgan, Jake, and Peter. All people that we've worked with for a while, or people we've known with for a while. We were really keen to get you guys to talk about what you've got to talk about, obviously, but also to have specific views on your jobs in the market because you're all in very different types of businesses. I'll present you just before everyone talks. So we'll start with Morgan, who's currently leading talent acquisition at catch.com.au. And really ramping things up on all fronts. So I don't even know how many roles you've got open in there at the moment, but from what last conversations with that, it's been a lot. Morgan will be talking about getting the foundations right when it comes to talent acquisition. So over to you, mate.
Thanks, Julian. Really appreciate it. I'll share my screen. Please, no judgment on my PowerPoint skills. And also, the screen's going to be taken over, so I won't be able to see any chat or anything like that. So if I can get a yes, it's working, that would be ideal. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's working, mate. You're all good.
Lovely. So I guess thank you for inviting me to be part of this. I really appreciate the intro, Julian, as well. My name is Morgan, and I head up the internal talent acquisition team at Catch. So super excited to be kicking off today's session and sharing some of the strategies that Catch has been developing to engage and attract talent. And really excited to be sort of sharing the stage with Jake and Peter as well. So I've been with Catch for about 18 months, and I was brought on board to help solve the challenge of how we're going to engage and hire the right people that's going to support our rapid scaling growth that we're about to experience. So when Sammy was asking me to join and be part of the panel, I looked back at our last 18 months and tried to think, well, what are the lessons that we've learned? What's our strategy moving forward? And how are we going to solve for this talent challenge ahead of us? And I remember talking to our MD, Peter Sauerborn, and we were talking about, if you want to build something big and something lasting, you better make sure you're building it on some fairly strong foundations, because you're going to get caught out otherwise pretty quickly. So that's what I'm going to talk about and chat to you about today. So it's a lot about how Catch is trying to work towards providing this working environment that makes people want to join Catch and also then stay with Catch once they come in. Hence, building strong foundations. So firstly, just a bit of context, and I absolutely love this infographic. It's Catch's journey on a page, effectively. And for those that don't know, we were founded by two brothers back in 2006. We were known as Catch of the Day. And for those that do know us, you might remember our co-founders would go out and source things like a pallet full of DVD containers, and that'd be the deal of the day, and that would run out once stock ran out. And that was pretty much the premise of the business in the early days. A lot's happened since then, but if we fast forward sort of 13 years to 2019, the business is going gangbusters. It's grown to incorporate things like Scoop on a menu log during their time. We've got this state-of-the-art automated fulfillment centre based out of Truganina. And Wesfarmers is we've caught the attention of Wesfarmers, and they ended up buying Catch for $230 million. So that's 2019. Now picture this, it's early 2020. I start day one. There's two of us in the recruitment team, and we're about an org of about 300 people total. Catch, with the backing of Wesfarmers, sets this super ambitious goal to see 7 times growth in 5 years. Wow, right? And also a bit of holy cow. I was pretty nervous at the time hearing that type of growth ambition. And I kind of liken that growth to this huge wave that a surfer's got to catch. So it's exciting, but you got to hold on tight because it's going to be a hell of a ride. And then wham, the pandemic hits. So not only do we have this big wave that we're trying to ride, we've effectively got this tsunami coming up behind us, which is AKA the pandemic. And pretty much the world shifted straight away. So we shifted to online shopping being a norm, and the e-commerce industry pretty much changed overnight. It was escalated 5-10 years into the future. We were also thrown into fully remote work, and other industries that weren't as fortunate were making wide sweeping redundancies and layoffs. So we've been trying to keep up with the evolving job market effectively. It's moving super quickly, and we're trying to navigate all these rapidly changing external factors, as well as building on some internal capability in some key areas. So the way that I saw the last 18 months is there were 3 major shifts, and this is just what we've experienced. Others might have experienced something slightly different. But effectively, if I talk you through those, phase 1, starting when the pandemic hit back in March 2020 through to pretty much the end of 2020, we hired about 250 people, effectively doubling our workforce. My team grew significantly, and we filled most of those roles directly and really quickly. And what we found is that from those people that were displaced, they were really keen, they needed security, and they wanted to have a job. So we didn't find it too hard to be able to engage with that talent. Job security was super high, and for anyone that sort of has heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you think about when stuff goes wrong, you think about those foundational things, security being one of them. And those that were in roles were really trying to stay in roles. Then we shift into phase 2, which started in 2021. It was summer. 2021 was going to be a different year. We were out of lockdown. Companies started to re-engage their recruitment machines, and then some on top of that, because they were trying to catch up from lost productivity in 2020. We also saw job vacancies soar. People's confidence was also back. So we saw an astounding amount of movement. I've never seen the job market so noisy and also so confused. It was just insane. People were being counter offered left and right. REMs were going up. You know, it was quite hectic. And then I've seen this next shift, phase 3, which has been sort of more the last 3 to 4 months. We've re-entered back into lockdowns. The market's saturated with job vacancies, and also comms from recruiters, both internal and external. Most people are just focusing on getting through the day. They're fatigued. They need a holiday. They're dealing with factors like homeschooling. And in a recent report that I read from Crew Talent Advisory, they mentioned some staggering facts, statistics. So for the software SaaS tech talent market in Australia, it was estimated to be about 350,000 people. At the same time, there was about 60,000 advertised roles open across LinkedIn, Seek, and other platforms. And if we start doing the maths, we think, sorry, there's my dogs. We started doing the maths, and there's, you know, four candidates per role, and not all of them are active, and a lot of them are exhausted. So that's kind of the challenge that's been in front of us. COVID, the changing landscape of job security for people, counter offers, all these things that I just spoke about. And then internally, we were trying to make sure that we had a really strong candidate to employee experience. We were working on our retention because we saw just the transformation for Catch. People were opting in and out. So we had some attrition there. And then on top of that, the market factors. We're trying to focus on growing our people and giving them career pathways. We were scaling as a business, so we were like hurting in certain pockets because we were growing so quickly. We needed to define our brand again, and what our DNA is as an organization. And then we were trying to look after our people at the same time. So all of these things sort of, you know, compounded on top of what we were trying to do. So what are the things that we started to look at? So from a hiring and recruiting perspective, we really wanted to make sure that we were learning to iterate and move a lot quicker. So we had some things in our recruitment processes that just weren't working the way that they should have been. We were looking for shortcuts. Candidates were giving us feedback that they were opting out because they didn't want to do a code test, or they didn't want to be involved in certain processes. And in certain parts of the business, we started to trial agile recruitment processes. So this sense of sprints, getting a brief, getting an understanding, engaging the market, getting a couple of profiles, bringing them back into the hiring process. Have we got it right? Yes, keep going. If not, iterate. Make sure that we're really quick at getting super clear on what we're trying to find. And if not, because you can lose time super quickly, and then you're 8 weeks down the track and you still haven't got anywhere. We're also solving hiring problems as a team, and I love this about Catch. So it's not TA's job to fill these vacancies. It's P&C, it's TA, it's the hiring managers, and it's any stakeholders that these people work within. And we're all getting together quite regularly to talk about talent problems, to talk about referrals, to talk about D&I. And we're not perfect in these areas, but this is the kind of rhythm that we're starting to get into as an organisation. It's a shared problem. We're also getting super clear about the work to be done and what problems we're trying to solve. So we want to be really deliberate about how we're onboarding people, giving them clear guidance as to what they're going to be working on and what success looks like. We're trying to get our PDs and how we articulate things really clear in our interview conversations and our briefing conversations. Sometimes these can be a bit vague, which means that we're not conveying a really strong message to the market, which leads to confusion. And if it's not what they expect when they come in, it can lead to attrition. We're also trying to build hiring team capability. So what this is all about is saying we've got people at different levels in our hiring manager with different capabilities. And even those that are really experienced, like I myself, can still learn a lot from how to go through a hiring process, how to interview, how to give feedback. you know, how to make sure that we're running those processes really robustly. And our MD's ex-Amazon, they've got one of the sort of tightest ships in regards to this stuff. So he's got some quite high expectations around this stuff. And then around internal mobility and career pathways. So we are foundational in some of these things, but they're on our strategic list, our big rocks, we call them. And building our talent is going to be critical, not just for us as an organisation, but I think for a lot of people, giving people opportunities, not looking at it as talent, but looking at it as people that are really smart and what skills do they need to step into different roles. We haven't, you know, we're not doing this stuff amazing right now. This is all stuff that we're iterating, working on. We're also working on our employee value proposition. So what's Catch's DNA? We're acquired by Wesfarmers, which is a 100-year-old organisation that you know, is completely different to what Catch and its origins is. So I'm running a program of work right now, and we're trying to get together our identity as an organisation. So we're going to try and aim to capture this unique essence of the culture and the values and define what differentiates us from others in the marketplace, so candidates can make a really informed opt-in, opt-out type of decision. Like, that sounds cool, I want to be part of Catch, or hang on, that sounds crazy, I don't want to go anywhere near that place, which is okay, right? And in creating this single, simple, universally compelling story about what it means to work at Catch, I think we'll also be able to give our people the tools to be brand ambassadors, whether it's in interviews, whether it's in forums like this, or whether it's just on LinkedIn or around the barbecue. So for Catch, this means celebrating the best of our startup past and then embracing the future. So we're an evolving identity. What's that going to look like for us? The reasons why understanding what our identity is, what our DNA is, and what's important to our people is because we really need to embed this into our employee experience and also our hiring experience. So we never want to forget that there's a whole heap of awesome organisations out there that candidates can choose from, and we need to continually be telling our story about why we think Catch is one of those amazing places. And then also, once we start to evolve that, we really need to get a lot better and lean a lot further into recruitment marketing. So my team as talent acquisition professionals effectively needs to be a version of a sales arm. So not to be salesy, but to actually sell all those really amazing points so candidates can make that really strong informed decision, especially in a market like today where there's so many options. Candidates need everything sort of presented to them so they can opt in. So these are some of the things that our team so far have been saying about Catch. They think that we're fun and we want to stay fun. They think that they have great flexibility, which is personalised. They think that the teams are compassionate, like there's a real sense of caring about each other, which has only come out more during the pandemic. And I think that we're inclusive, which are all really amazing feedback that we've got back. What's important to them is our company culture and values, the ability to have impact for our customers in our world, in Australia, in this market, and also the team, the people that they work with. So we feel like if we can get some of those things super right, we'll have a pretty good story and a pretty good place to work. And then there's also this candidate into employee experience. So I've played around with this for way too long and it's not that brilliant, but for us, I was thinking Catch, customer and candidates. And for my team specifically, our customer is our hiring team. They're our hiring managers and they're some of the, they've got high standards and we need to make sure that we're working with them really well. So for us, when we're going through any process, the company comes first, the hiring team is our customer, and we need great tools to support our hiring teams in that process to make sure we've got a really efficient, robust process. And then when it comes to candidates, we need to make sure that we're hitting a couple of things really, really well. And we still have a long way to go in this space. Awareness and interest, our EVP, our branding, you know, that's becoming so important. It's so hard to get candidates on the phone right now to actually get an opportunity to tell the story of why you think you've got a great opportunity. So the more that you can create that awareness and interest before you're trying to pick up the phone, I think that's just critical. The application process needs to be super simple. Long gone is the time when you could make candidates jump through hoops to be, what's the word for it? To be graced with an opportunity to have a call from a recruiter from your company. It's not about that anymore. Recruiter interaction, again, we're this first conduit, and I've got so many stories of new catch employees coming in and telling me how amazing my team has been in supporting them in this journey coming into the organisation. Meeting the team interviews, this is how we display culture. Again, this is not stuff that is new to anyone, but we're really making sure that we get these foundational things right. Our offer and acceptance process and being super clear and making sure that we've got a really competitive value proposition there. You make a choice as an organisation whether you want to be the top payer, you've got the best benefits. Is it about culture? Like what are your hiring principles and what's your part of your value proposition? And you know what, for us, we want to pay really well. We want to have great benefits, but we want people that are passionate about our story and our journey. And anytime when you talk to people, money's not the top. It's very important, but it's like a hygiene factor. Get that right, and it's the other things that tend to be really important. Most candidates, if you said we've got limited flexibility, they just walk away. And then making sure we go through all this hard work, and then how do we go through pre-boarding and onboarding in a really seamless fashion? There's a gap there usually where a lot of the times people just get left alone. So how can we create that engagement during that time? That was it. Sorry if I rushed through anything, but for us, like I mentioned, we've got a long way to go. We've got a really great starting point. We think we've got a lot of things that would be appealing for talent, whether it's engineering or broader, to start with a career at Catch. And whilst I probably didn't speak about anything in too much detail and specifically about a mechanism we're using, a transactional mechanism that we're using right now, we're working really hard on that. The team is delivering on that, but without us getting these things right, we're going to continue to struggle 6 months, 12 months, 2 years down the line. So that's why our immediate focus is on these really foundational things so we can continue to grow and scale. That's it.
Thank you so much, mate. This is great. I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions. I certainly have a few, so we'll get back to it in the Q&A part. I really love the fact that you mentioned that this is an ever-evolving process, and you have to keep iterating on it. And that's probably one thing that we see across the board everywhere is the moment your processes are just what they are, and you don't question them, and you don't think about them constantly and try to get better and change and adapt to what the market is doing the next month and the next quarter, then you're just not going to win. So. This is great. Thank you so much.
Hey, just a quick one, Jules. Just to all the attendees, just a reminder, we're going to have a Q&A at the end of everyone's talks. So please do send them through in the chat section. We'll get to them a little bit later, but as you can think of a question, please put it in, and we'll come back to it later. Cool. Back to you, Jules.
Perfect. So just going back to my little thing there. Who did we have next? We've got
Jake going next.
We've got Jake next. So Jake, I haven't spoken to you in a while. Hello.
Be kind, mate. Be kind.
So you're currently at Lexicon Digital as their leading talent acquisition. Like a lot of recruiters, I think you spend a lot of time in agencies, and then you moved across, and you're tackling different problems, being fully internal and fully focusing on one brand. So you will be talking about how to nail your processes, and we're all looking forward to it. So over to you, mate.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. Let me jump in. Are we good?
Yeah, we're all good, mate. Looks good.
Yeah, sweet. Alrighty, I've started right in the middle. Classic. Alrighty, well, thanks for handing over. Morgan, very tough act to follow there, mate. Really interesting stuff, and great to hear a little bit about the Catch journey. As Julian mentioned, I'm Jake. I originally started out in recruitment back in London, in the agency, pretty cutthroat, pretty hard-nosed, and then thankfully found my way to Australia and moved internal with Lexicon, and the journey's just been sort of tremendous in terms of growth and what we've been able to achieve and what we've done. In terms of Lexicon as a business, we're a technology, software engineering and agile consultancy. So we've grown, been on an incredible growth journey actually. Start of this year, we was at 55. Currently, we're at 100 people. By the end of the year, we probably would have doubled in size within the 12 months. So, and we've really had to change a lot about how we recruit and our processes in that time. I think about sort of when I joined the business, and that sort of January, February time of this year, where there was tons of candidates available on the market. Not many people had really kind of woken up to the hiring and were kind of ready to go. Probably got a lot of our hiring done in that time, and we're quite fortunate to find some really good people. And then slowly, as the rest of the market sort of started to pick up as well, it's just got harder and harder from a hiring perspective. I think Morgan touched on there the fact that you know, when we were out of lockdown, particularly in Melbourne, things picked up and there was lots of hiring happening. And then over the last couple of months, again, it's probably slowed right down for all the reasons that he mentioned there. So this talk just going to keep very focused on, I guess, some of the real basic things that we've changed in terms of the framing and how we've set up our structure to our interview processes, from everything right from screening right through to the technical assessments and offer and things like that. So just to jump in, so successful hiring, it's the basic stuff. It breaks down into 3 areas. Attract is probably the sexy stuff. It's where the magic happens. That's where you can kind of get out in the traffic, be original. That's where, as a recruiter, you want to spend most of your time. You know, you want to get the right people to talk to you. It's also the hardest part. So if you're going to be spending all your time and putting all the effort into getting that right, you want to make sure that your onboarding and your interview process is as slick as possible to make sure that you're maximizing as many people as you can get through that funnel. In terms of interview processes, there's not many bad interview processes out there. Normally, they just kind of mess up the balance between selecting the right people and convincing them to join you. If you're doing too much focusing on the selection, you're going to miss out on really selling the business and the opportunity. And later down the track, it's going to come back to bite you, because they'll have already made up their mind throughout the process of where their preferred choice is. So jumping into it, some of the principles and the things that we've really thought about in terms of, I guess, what's really guided us in our process and some of the things that we've changed. I've highlighted some of the things in here that are probably the things that come up in the early stage of the funnel, and then later in the end we'll switch back and cover off some of the other pieces. But just in terms of calling those out, things like testing commitment, you know, right at the beginning of the process, when you're talking to candidates, have they spoken to their manager already about the fact that they're you know, maybe not quite happy with some of the stuff that's going on? Are there any push factors there? The amount of counter offers we're seeing has been astronomical. And the only way that you can really save yourself some time is by having that upfront, open, honest chat right at the beginning, so that everyone's aware of what's going on. And it only takes them, you know, a short chat with their boss to understand whether some of those things that are currently a pain point are going to change. Because you can bet your life in 2 weeks, when you've gotten through the process and there's an offer on the table, those things are going to change very quickly for them. Another thing that we've sort of really dug into a lot more is know your candidate. I think back when we were hiring towards the beginning of the year, you know, you could pretty much tell your story as a business. You could talk about your EVP from a very broad perspective, and people would buy into that. At this point, I feel you need to be a lot more personable. Candidates are getting pitched to 4 or 5 times a week. And if you're not able to really dig into the things that they're interested in and the things that they care about, you're not going to be able to really resonate with them and really get through. Everybody's got a good culture. Everybody's got good benefits. If you're a tech company, those are the things that are kind of a given. But it's about finding the things that really speak to the candidate in terms of what they themselves are particularly interested in and care about. And the last one I'll touch on at this point is removing barriers. So one of the big things that we've done is we've changed our technical assessment. We've actually taken out the take-home assignment for seniors and leads. And we've managed to really change and affect the way that the funnel's behaving and the results and the things that we're seeing as we go. So jumping in to the start of the funnel for us screening, what did that look like? Right at the beginning. Really, it was probably one standard pitch. There was probably a lot of emphasis in there around the candidate's experience with our chosen stacks. What frameworks were they using? What versions of those frameworks? And if we didn't really like what we were hearing, we might not have moved forward with them at that point. At this point in time, there's not enough candidates out there on the market for you to afford to be picky on those things. We're looking for good engineers now, and that really kind of shines through in terms of the questions that we're asking at screening, and the things that we're really looking for and qualifying when we're speaking to candidates. We would far rather hire a good engineer that's got very different capabilities and experience that miss out on them and keep waiting for the next full stack Node or full stack Java candidate, whatever it might be out there on the market. The rest of those things are pretty standard. I suppose the big thing to call out is inviting them to complete the take home. This was kind of the bit where we sort of kissed them off and prayed that they would come back to us. Over time, it became clear that more and more candidates, regardless of whether they said they were going to complete the code test or not, actually ended up getting offers somewhere else. And in that time frame, would disappear off the radar for us. So I'll talk through some of the things that we've changed in our screening and some of the things that we've done slightly differently. I'd love to go to some of the panelists after this slide and just ask if there's anything that you guys are doing slightly differently that has been working well for you. For us, like I mentioned there, deep diving into the candidate's motivations and objectives, making sure that you know your candidate inside and out. Sometimes I'll spend most of my screening calls on this. Sometimes I'll come back to it at the end if I'm really not satisfied that I've managed to get right into the details of what they're looking for. Often they'll probably back you off with, I want to learn this technology, or there's this thing in my career that I want to improve and, maybe get promotion. There's always something more to it. There's always something, you can always go deeper, and it's getting that bit deeper that's going to be the difference between when you pitch your offer, having them go with you or having them go with, your competitor down the road. Another thing that's worked really well for us, I think, is repeating back their objectives when you pitch. So rather than just giving a one size fits all pitch about Lexicon or, wherever it might be, really break down the things that they've said, really echo that back and make sure that when you're pitching back the role, you're actually talking about the EVP or the aspects of the EVP that really speak to and resonate with the candidate. At that point, you kind of get to a stage where you're really building trust, and candidates are really quite receptive to the fact that you've actually listened to them. I can't imagine how many times a week they probably get pitched to for different roles, many of which probably won't be right for them. And I've definitely found that that's been something that has changed the amount of engagement we've had with candidates and the amount of success we've had in terms of moving them through the process. These days, we give very direct feedback and book in next steps on the call there and then. If we think they're right for us, I'm not going to wait 24 hours. I'm not going to get back to them at the end of the day. I'm going to get excited. I'm going to tell them on the call, these are the reasons why I think you're good for us. So these are the reasons why I think we're right for you. When are you available? Let's get the next steps booked in and let's get this going. And that, again, has been something that rather than letting the candidate sort of disappear, you've got something in the diary and things are already moving on. Again, talking about the counter offer and then leaving a lasting impression. Comes back to how many times the candidate's getting pitched a week at the moment. What are you doing that's going beyond the screening call? Are you following up with a candidate via text? Are you giving them more information they can check out? These are the little things that you can do that are going to make a very big difference to how much buy-in you get from the candidate, and really how much, how high you're going to be in their thoughts. Is there anyone on the panel that has other things that you may have done or addressed recently that's kind of changed for you?
I would say through the process, like when it comes to I think closing candidates, I think you're absolutely right. I think we've noticed it more and more now. It's if a candidate is good and it's and we can see that they're going to progress and they're going to be good for the client, we got to close them ASAP. I don't like it when they're in the middle of of deployment. I want to get them in interviewing tomorrow, if not the day after, because they could be gone at any moment. It's such an insane market out there. I don't know if you've touched on the topic of tests, and I think, you know, going through a coding challenge, but I'm seeing a lot of difference nowadays, and some companies are scrapping the coding challenge altogether. I think you're about to touch on that anyway, but yeah, you've really had to be different in this market. You've had to move quickly. You know, you also have to be kind wherever you can be. You know, you can't let the frustrations get the better of you. Candidates talk to each other, and you really feel that in this market. So yeah, I think really just an extension of what you're saying. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, awesome. Looking at the technical assessment then, so as I touched on there, yeah, this was something that we were finding to be a real big roadblock for us in terms of our process. Probably about 40% of candidates wouldn't complete the test, and most of them would be quite amenable to a test. And probably a small minority would say, no, you know, I'm not doing it. But just in the process of, you know, them completing it or having multiple tests, many candidates we speak to now have got 3 or 4 code tests that are in flight. It was becoming a real big blocker for us. I suppose the other call out would be the time to hire, probably 2 to 3 weeks on average for an engineer. And when you're putting a code test in there, that includes sort of turnaround for our engineers to review it, and then everything else that kind of goes with that. Once we got past the take home, we would do a pairing exercise in the Q&A, probably have about a 60-70% pass rate there. This was pretty standard for us. I guess with the screening, we tend to screen pretty hard. So we make sure that, you know, if we're going to be using the engineer's time, and we tend to get pretty good buy-in by that stage. What we found when we actually changed the process, we offered the route where candidates would go straight to the pairing exercise. Interestingly, the pass rate stayed the same. I think there was a lot of pushback from the business, definitely from the engineers around whether taking the barrier to entry away of having the code test would really be detrimental to the quality of people that we would see at interview, and whether that would waste their time. It stayed the same, and that's been something that I guess has been a bit of a surprise for them. It's been a little bit of a surprise for me, because I wasn't sure if it was maybe going to dip a little bit, but we've been really fortunate to have seen that. In terms of time to hire, it's down by at least a week on average. And actually the really interesting thing is when you need to push, when you've got a candidate that's, you know, already at final or might have an offer on the table, our personal best so far has been 48 hours from outreach to the candidate, screen, technical, final, and offer. So there's a little asterisk there, because we didn't actually get that candidate that say, you can't, doesn't matter how good your process is, you can't win them all. I think it's good to be honest with yourself with that too. But just the fact that, you know, I know now whenever I hear a company say, you know, like, it takes us 2 weeks to hire, we're very happy with that process. Somewhere deep inside me, there's something very competitive that says, brilliant. I've got 12 days where I can close your candidates whilst they're in flight. And that's exactly kind of what's happening out there in the market at the moment. It's how quickly can you move, and how quickly can you make an informed decision. Really, for us, I think I liken it to going to a PT rather than going to a gym. If you've got a gym program and you're going to go, you know, a candidate might have all the best intentions of doing your code test. They might say they're going to go to the gym. They might not do it. If you've got a PT booked and it's a pairing session, they're going to turn up and they're going to do their best. And that's where I think we've really got that buy-in. Over the 6-week trial that we did it, we actually found the number of offers almost doubled. So that in itself was huge for us. We've been iterating as we go. It's definitely not a finished product. Around the time that the trial finished, the world went back into lockdown, and the market's been a very difficult place for getting candidates even interested to going down the funnel. So the experiment's kind of paused from that perspective. But I think that definitely this is going to be something that has already made a big impact on our hiring, and will continue to inform how we do so. Thinking about how we then used to offer and close candidates without that real deep understanding of what they were looking for and, you know, what they were really interested in. I mean, sure, we had that on a high level. We might be able to, you know, guide them into what it was, but really we were talking about the opportunities themselves when we were selling the role, and where that opportunity might go to from a career growth perspective. these days, we've had to completely flip that on its head, and it's very candidate focused and very personable and driven from kind of what they're looking for. And it all goes back to having that very deep understanding of the candidate. So in terms of offering now, it's all about leveraging everything that you found out early on in the call and just being as personable as you can be when it comes to passing on feedback. I'll talk about exactly who was in the interview. I'll talk about exactly what they had to say. I'll tell them about how they would love to have them a part of the team and, you know, bring their back end skills up, or testing, whatever it might be. And those personal connections, those are the things that are going to really be the difference makers when people think about who they want to work for and who they want to be, which team they want to be a part of. Nowadays, when we're making offers, we're very keen to tee up a virtual coffee meet with the team. It will typically be somebody at a similar level. For example, if they're an associate or a grad, we'll typically throw them in a room with another associate or a grad, and they can talk about all the important things that, you know, they're interested in. That's mentoring, the training, what other things were they you know, involved in right from the start. And that's been huge for us in terms of helping candidates make informed decisions and getting things right from the top. Just closing off then in terms of hiring principles, going back to some of the ones that we didn't cover off. These are the three that if you're going to do anything in your process or get anything right, these are the three things that are going to be the most important and have the most impact. And that's what we've found. Speed has been absolutely super important in terms of getting people through. I think have I frozen?
Hey, you're all good, mate.
All you guys are frozen. I can't even see myself. So yeah, speed is the number one most important thing. I once read online that 80% of candidates accept the first offer that they receive. I've got no idea if it's true, but it's something that I held in very high regard, and it's paid me very well ever since. In terms of personal connection, how are you driving that personal connection between the candidate? It's not about Lexicon and the candidate, it's about the candidate and the people they've met. You know, what have they specifically said that they like about this person that's going to make them a good fit for the team? And then the last one, champion the candidate. This is something that does get thrown around quite a lot in talent, but it's something that has always been a very big part of what we do at Lexicon. You know, right from the get-go, we're open and honest with candidates, particularly engineers. We probably screen 15, 16 people for every offer that we send out. And we get really excited every time somebody moves past each part of the phases of our process. You know, we give them everything they can possibly need to do a good job. And I think that, you know, we share in those wins. And I think that really makes a big difference for us when it comes to offer time and hopefully closing the right people. And that's me.
Thank you so much. This was great. The only thing that really annoys me here is that we didn't get the chance to hire you. There's a few questions in the Q&A chat that are very relevant to what you were talking now, and we'll go back to them at the end. But if everyone wants to start thinking about the difference between speed of recruitment and the right pace, because you know, there has been times that we've seen across multiple clients where it's too fast. And you know, and I'll be very, very keen to see what happens, you know, when you're hiring that fast, and you don't have the choice in this market. I'm conscious of that, but I'd be very keen to see what happens at 3 months and 6 months in terms of retention, because there's always that the right pace for that candidate versus speed is always a very interesting topic, and it's popped up in the Q&A. So hopefully we get to talk about this after Peter's talk. Now we've got Peter Salas, who's the head of people and culture at Colmeo. I'm very biased when it comes to Peter because we've been working together for 18 months, nearly more than that.
Closer to 2 years, probably.
Closer to 2 years. So Peter's at Colmeo. Colmeo is our biggest client. It's very obvious on all our social channels. We've had a very big partnership together since the start of Colmeo. I think when we started working with Colmeo, Colmeo did not exist as a brand and as what it is today. So I think you've hired over 100 people in 18 months, 2 years. and the vast majority of these people have been during a global pandemic. So I'm frantically just trying to go through my tabs to find exactly the title of your presentation, which is your 5 killer ideas to engage your new hires remotely, because that's your big thing.
Let me just share my screen. Thanks, Jules. Yeah, thanks for having me here today. I'm really excited to be here with, an exceptional group of panelists to chat through all things. And as Julian said, I'm from Colmio and I head up people and culture. Up until recently, I was a team of one, so was looking after all things recruitment, employee experience, all the things that you think of when it comes to HR and people and culture. That was with me. And the one thing that I'm really passionate about is ensuring that our team are really supported, engaged, and whilst we were in the office, this was my passion, and very quickly at the start of last year had to turn to look to how we did that remotely. And as Julian said, we have partnered with All Squares since before the Colmio journey. So when we were building out our proof of concept at the end of 2019, which we did get the approval to move forward with, and here we are as Colmio today. So I'm a people geek from way back. I had 10 years experience working in hotel management, which I did love. But when I took a step back and thought, what do I really love about my role running hotels? It was leading a team and helping the team grow and giving them a great experience. And so hence my move into the people and culture space, which I've been working in for the past 10 or so years. I was super fortunate at the end of 2019 to have been offered the head of people and culture role at Colmio. So it was the first. So Colmio had previously been called Agent Plus, and we're a property management software platform. And the Colmio project was a greenfields project, which came off and is a property management software as well. So at the start of 2020, I started my new role. And we started the build of Colmio. To give you an idea on the size of Colmio at the time when I started full-time with them, with us, we were a team of about 40 people. So that was a combination of contractors and permanent employees. And today on our all company channel on Slack, we have 150. So in about 18 months, we've tripled our team. And we're still today a combination of both contractors and permanent employees. But as Julian said, most of that team we welcomed whilst we were remote. So in early March 2020, we launched the Colmio brand, and literally a week later, I remember the day very clearly. Bill, who is our CTO, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Peter, have you got a minute?" And we'd already been, talking about COVID and what our plan would be. And it turned out that one of our team had been at an exposure site. So we sent everyone home. We said, take your laptops just in case, but we'll be back in the office soon, as I'm sure everyone did. And here we are, nearly sort of 19, 20 months later, and we're still remote. So yeah, I remember that day very well. And I do also very clearly remember the first day working remotely, when it all of a sudden dawned on me, once we've checked that everyone was okay and they were at home and they had what they needed just to get them through the next week or two, that we had new starters starting on the Monday and they were some of our first Colmio team members. So got on the phone straight away, and here's where my killer ideas start, from how we started the journey of getting to the point where we are today, where some of the feedback we get from the team who have started, and as Julian has said, through contractors and permanent employees, there's been about 100 new team members, and we look at the onboarding journey and the engagement of that for both contractors and permanent employees, and we look at it in regards to the different engagements that they have with us as well. We get a lot of really great feedback from the team that says that it's the best onboarding experience they've had, and yeah, it's all been whilst remote. So first, my first idea, which I think, Morgan and Jake have both touched on as well, information, inform. Information is so key. For me, it really starts during the interview stage as well. And as both Morgan and Jake have spoken about, it's about showing who you are as a business. So the first thing I literally say before I even introduce myself when I'm chatting with the candidate, when we have the first interview, is that I say to them, we're obviously working remotely. I don't know if you can see over my corner here, but my dog is nestled in his little bed over here. He is a miniature dachshund and he likes to protect me from absolutely nothing. He's a small dog. I'm also an online shopper and have been known to receive deliveries in the middle of an interview. Now, I'm saying this is literally what I say to candidates. Hi, Mathilde. This is what I literally say to candidates, not so that they know that I'm a dog fan or that I'm an online shopper, but for them to really see, for it to be visual to them, that we understand what it's like to work remotely. And it's really quite interesting. Literally about 3 weeks ago, I had the thought, maybe I'm going to stop saying that because you know what, we're 19 months in now and it's a bit silly. And then literally 2 days later, had a team member start with us and they said, I really loved in the interview, Peter, how you said that. It really put me at ease and made me really see the type of place that you are. So it's from that first interaction, them really seeing what it's like to work for Colmio. And so that's the first part of our information. Second part is, so once they've signed the contract and, we've got them across the line and all that, sometimes I remember when I've started jobs before, you don't hear from the person for, from the place where you're going for another 4 weeks for your notice period. For me and the team here now, we are constantly touching base with them, not overkill because we know they're finishing up their role as well, but little bits along the way. So welcome emails in the week prior to the team member starting, making sure that they hear from me in my role as from people and culture, but also from the hiring manager as well, because that's the person they're going to be dealing with the most on day one. And then from day one, we've got induction catch-ups. And I warn the new team members as well, it's going to be full on because in some cases, there are back-to-back catch-ups with whether it be team leads or the executive team. But the idea about that is whilst we're remote, giving the new team member the opportunity to put some faces to names straight away and to also have people that they can call on to ask for help or advice if they need or to know where to go to get some answers as well. And we also have a Confluence page. I know it seems really standard, and that is reviewed and updated by all of the teams. So, and we really encourage the team to get in there and update for things that they've found useful during their onboarding journey. This one is going to seem really, really basic, but you'd be surprised. And look, I'll first to admit, we have missed some occasionally as well, but making sure that the new team member is invited to key events as well. There can't be any worse feeling than being a new team member, I don't think, and then not being invited to the fortnightly product showcase or something. So ensuring that you're doing those invites, but also ensuring that that it's being talked about and that they've got the ability to join. And do they know who they can turn to if they need help? So whether it be a tech lead or whether it be anyone in the exec team, whether it be anyone, we're now a people and culture team of 2. So whether it be anyone in the P&C team, whatever we can do, even if I'm not the right person to answer the question, which often I'm not because I won't necessarily know the answer, but at least I know where we can go to get the answer for the new team member. So making sure that the new team member feels really comfortable to be able to reach out and ask for help if they need it. Idea 2, surprise and delight. So this is important in the office as well, but I think even more so during lockdowns, because I don't know about anyone else on this call, but for me, my highlight of my day is what am I having for dinner, and hearing what others are having for dinner. So if I get a delivery in the mail that I'm not expecting, you know, that's pretty exciting as well. So when we went remote, we very quickly looked at how we can build out a welcome pack to help the new Colmeo team member feel part of the team. So we do we send an email after they've accepted their offer with Colmeo, and it asks them a whole lot of questions. And under the guise of we're going to do a Slack introduction for them on day one. But in that, we're asking questions around what's their favorite cuisine, what's your favorite lolly, do you prefer cheese or chocolate? And I have a really unique sense of humor, so I get a lot of fun in actually, if you know, if someone says that their favorite food is French, then I'll put in their welcome pack some of those French fries, chips that you can buy at the supermarket. It's a silly sense of humor, but if it gives someone a bit of a laugh, then I think why not, and a bit of surprise. And in there as well, I mean, you can probably see in some of those pictures, so there's an emergency roll of toilet paper. That was around the time of last year when we were all, there were toilet paper shortages everywhere. So I tapped into our office supply and was including that in welcome packs, just some snacks, you know, those basic things that sometimes that you would normally get being in the office, and just to make it a little bit fun, Post-it notes. Last year as well, really randomly, a Colmeo colouring competition started. So where the team were colouring, and then we posted on Slack and people would vote for who coloured it best that week. So then you can see in the bottom left-hand picture there, a copy of the colouring book and some texters. And we've been really fortunate throughout the pandemic as well, is that I live really close to our office. So you can see there, that's me. When just before lockdown 5 started here in Melbourne, and I did a dash to the office. I found one of those shopping trolley things, and our group IT helped stuff it all with laptops and everything, so that we could, because we had a whole lot of new team members starting the following Monday. So just really thinking about different ways to just ensure that even during the lockdowns, that we can still give the team member what they need to hit the ground running on day one. So yeah, and then once they hit day one, they get their introduction, they've got their welcome pack, and they've got all the equipment that they need. Do all the things you did in the office, but do it online. Now, sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Zoom fatigue is an actual real thing, but still important to really celebrate the things that you would do normally in the office. So we do the welcomes, we do Slack introductions, but then also at our fortnightly product showcase, we actually do a welcome to the new team member, to all the new team members that have started in the last fortnight. We ask them to put their cameras on, take themselves off mute, and kind of do a bit of a wave and say something, so that the team can actually put a face to the name, so that we can also then build that connection as well. We celebrate birthdays still monthly. Now, I don't know if anyone else on the call has trialed singing happy birthday on Zoom. It's what I like to call hideously fabulous. So we sound really bad, but it's probably the most fun that I have during the month when we're in lockdowns, because it's just a good laugh and it's a great way to celebrate the team, but also a great way just to see that we're all about having a bit of fun for the new team member, and also a great opportunity for them to meet more people in the team as well that aren't necessarily in the squad that they're working with on a day-to-day. Lunch trains, so they rise and fall, the popularity of the virtual lunch trains, but we still do them occasionally. We do Burger Fridays, those sorts of things. Again, this is another opportunity for a new team member just to continually meet other people that if you're in the office, you'd pass them and you'd probably have a bit of that water cooler chatter. But when you're remote, you're not getting any of that, and you don't have that walking past in a hallway. So thinking outside the box, and as uncomfortable as it may be, to, you know, put your to sink your teeth around a burger on a Zoom call. It's just another way just to have a chat and get to know the team as well. And my poor dog Jackson once ended up with a burger on his head, which, you know, it is what it is. And Slack channels for hobbies. So we've all got common interests. One of my favorite ones is the pet posts on, we've got a Slack channel. Again, it's around finding those common interests that then people end up forming these connections that they're not able to do because we're not in the office. And so forming those connections with other people in the team. One of my favorite stories of late is one of the team really wanted a pet, and actually through the pet channel met some other really big pet fans, and they actually are now getting a puppy in a couple of weeks. So just little things like that, which can really put you in touch with other people with similar interests. Catch up in real life when you can. So grabbing that opportunity when and if you can. So this is probably one of the biggest ones, because the feedback we hear a lot from the team is that that's what they really miss, is that connection with a team member and the rest of their team in the office. And so where we've been able to, obviously when we're in stage 4 and we can only travel 5Ks, you know, it's not possible to necessarily meet and greet on day 1, but where we can, we've really tried. Same with welcome lunches. So we do welcome lunches, and we've been keeping, you know, a list of who we need to do, like who we'll do lunches with once we're able to. We started a connected channel as well last year. So this was in the height of lockdown 2, sorry. And so just a way, because you could and you can now exercise with people that are in your 5Ks, right? So we share our 5K radiuses, and then if they find a place to meet up, and so then the team can meet new people that aren't part of their daily team as well. So just I think last week I met one of our team who started whilst remote, and hasn't actually met anyone in real life, but we worked out we both had an overlap of our 5K radius. So again, it's just around creating that connection. Brown bags, in-office events, wherever we can, getting into the office when we're able to. Again, it's just about developing that connection, as uncomfortable as it may be when you're wearing masks or whatever as well, but just trying to sort of have that. So yeah. And my final idea is just have fun with it. Try something. If it works out, that's great. If it doesn't, then just try something new, and it's totally fine to move on. I am always asking the team for feedback on their onboarding experience. What have they enjoyed? What haven't they? I just give things a go, try it, and like I said, just have some fun while you're doing it, because if you're having fun, I always think about the team member and them wanting to meet new people and starting a new role, and you know, being in lockdown, and whether it be homeschooling, all of those things, it's just all about creating that connection with the team. And that's it from me. Thanks, Julian.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone again. Like, this is it's awesome, because you all have slightly similar jobs, very different jobs at the same time, and everyone is coming at this from a very different angle. So this is great. I think there's a lot of really good learnings to take out of this. There's a few questions in the chat there. Some of them are similar, so I'll rephrase them. So please, no one gets offended if I don't quote exactly what you're saying. There's a question from Zach, there's questions from Michael, and there's a question from someone called Binyamin Lawal, and I'm apologizing if I'm butchering your name. I just have the one big word there. The one thing that we've started to talk about before, I guess, is, you know, the speed versus pace. and is moving too fast sometimes detrimental to the process? It's a question that's been asked a couple of times there around, has there been a time where we've moved too fast, and do you think that because you moved too fast, you missed out on the candidates because maybe you freaked them out, or they're freaked out, or anyone has any comments about that?
I'll happily go first on that, because I know Julian, you yourself have called us out a few times where we wanted to just go straight to offer after interview one, and it's and then when you call it out, when someone else calls out, you go, of course, yeah, we are moving too quickly, but and because it's so important, because the candidate is wanting to find out more about us and as well, so just having that, and then having that challenge, like the challenge in the thought, because even though you may really love them, they might still have a bit of uneasiness. And there have been cases where that person has been the person that we have hired, and they are still working with Colmio, which is awesome. But glad for them that we have taken the time so that we can then give them the opportunity to meet other people within the business that are way cooler than either me or the hiring manager as well. So yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I might jump in on this one. For me, there's so many different nuances, and every hiring process, I think, is different. So for me, it's less about speed, but making sure that you hit the right the right stages, and that you're comfortable as an employer to move forward. So if you can make sure that your hiring team, the candidate meets with the right people, and you can set that up quite quickly, I think that's okay. I think you need to balance that with the candidate being able to get information, digest it, make a decision, maybe have some more questions, talk to their family, things like that. I think where you become unstuck is when you miss parts of your process. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting thing, because as we're all starting to look at our processes, there's some things that we might think are critical, and what we're getting now is feedback, and Jake spoke to it just before. Maybe it's just our assumption, and when we actually scrutinize it a little bit more, is code test actually getting us a result? So it's about, what are you looking for, what are you trying to validate, and making sure that those processes are really robust. But I think it's a two-way street, as you mentioned as well. The candidate's making a decision at the same time.
Yeah. That two-way street comment, I think, for me is just spot on. It's really, there's two ends of this. It's not just because you want to hire someone, they'll want to jump in, and it's not because they want to come in that you want them in. So meeting in the middle and adapting processes, without cutting corners, without skipping steps, but understanding what's important to both parties all the way through it is just so crucial. There's another interesting one that is kind of I guess goes with the speed and the pace of the process, is the and that was directly to you, Morgan, around and then to you, Peter, because you talked about it as well, talking about pre-boarding and I guess how do you balance the desire for communication without it being too much, like how much is too much, and if people are still working and they're still employed by someone else, what's the right balance? And I'm sure it's per individual, and it's trust your guts. But if anyone's got any comments about this, everyone attending today was keen to hear your thoughts on that.
That was your topic, Peter. Do you want to kick it off, or do you want me to go?
Sure.
Or?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I don't get. So yeah, I think it's really individual. So we have the set things that we work through. So the welcome questions, and then touching base sort of 2 to 3 weeks prior in regards to equipment and what they require, opening up that channel. And so I've had some candidates who they just want to respond to that, and then in the week prior, which again is another touch point for me and the hiring manager. But then I've had other candidates. So I had a team member who started with us who during lockdown 5, I think, actually just wanted someone else to chat to. So called and just said, Peter, do you have a bit of time just to have a chat? You know, I want to talk to someone different to her day to day. So we had a chat just about lots of different things, and it's about really, I think, you know, just figuring out and tailoring to the candidate in some cases. So because everyone's different and wants a different experience. So yeah, and where you've got the ability to do that, I think you should. And I think it's necessary at the moment as well, because yeah, it is a candidate's market, as Sammy said. So yeah.
I think from a catch perspective, I think we've got a good process. I'm so keen. We talk about this all the time about making it better and automating it. And there's some amazing tools out there that help you automate it, which means your hiring manager doesn't have to think about it. It means the HR team doesn't have to think about it. And we've got a system in place. So HR onboarding, all those types of things, amazing, not just for onboarding. I think it's about the moments that matter. So I feel like if you get a moment right in the onboarding experience, you want to hear about it and you just think about it personally. First of all, it's around, like, there's this premise around the 5 C's of successful onboarding, and the first is around compliance. So when you're stepping into a new role, you want to have all those logistical pieces about the contract and, you know, the policies and like what's ahead of me. So that's important as you actually go through the offer process. Then there's the opportunity for candidates to be able to go through clarification. So there's maybe additional questions. What do I wear day one? You know, what's the gist of X, Y, and Z? Culture. So I think it's a really great thing to be able to re-embed culture. And it's, you know, if you're a relaxed organization, like, have fun with it, like Peter was saying, and just kind of go with the flow. Throw them a welcome pack with all the silly stuff that you can think of, because people love that. Like, we've got a welcome box, and it's the number one thing that people continually say. They go, oh my God, hey, I got a delivery. Like, wow. We're simple beings sometimes. And then it's all the cool stuff behind it, right? Like, we've got a catch hoodie. Wow, that's amazing. Like, now I can wear it and I can feel like part of the team a week before I actually start. Peter touched on a really important thing around connection with the hiring manager the week beforehand, connection with the team. So it's not necessarily having a conversation with the team member, but maybe you could create a little video and introduce people to the team in that way. And then it's just the ability to check back on anything. So that's kind of like some high level onboarding C's. And I didn't just bring that up because catch starts with the C as well.
That's funny. I'm just conscious of time. We'll try to wrap this up around 7-ish. I think a lot of us have got young families to go to. I'm certainly one of them. There's a few more questions around. There's one from Zach that I think is quite interesting around salaries, and obviously, you know, salaries are skyrocketing. Businesses have budgets and budget realities, and you know, some budgets are bigger than others. Do you find that you're having to be flexible with salaries, or do you find that, you know, you just stand your ground on it and you still manage to hire through this and put other things forward? Jake,
I think Morgan probably touched on it when he was talking about, you know, the attraction strategy and really nailing where you want to be on the what would you call it, on the food chain when it comes to salaries and stuff like that. I would say if you're going to go in and be the number one best payer in the market, you're going to attract people that want to be at that company that's the best paying company in the market. And in 6 months, 12 months, you better change your pay scales and you better be that number one paying company in the market, because they will still be looking for that exact same thing. So it's whether you want to buy in and, you know, be aware that you're obviously, you know, that's an investment you're going to continue to need to address and keep on top of. I think for us, we've definitely adjusted our pay bands because things have definitely tightened up in the market and it's definitely become a bit harder. But we don't go beyond those. And I think as long as you keep, you know, as long as you keep your emotions out of it, and, you know, regardless of how much you want this person or how hard this has been, you know, you've got to keep the bigger picture in mind. And I think as long as you do that, you can't go too far wrong.
Makes sense. Any other comments on this?
I would just say that when we're having hiring conversations at Catch, we're always linking it back to capability. So we don't have we've got budgets, we've got REM ranges, but we're actually making decisions on capability. So there's been so many instances where somebody's come in and we've gone above their REM expectations because we're actually aligning them to what we think is fair in the market. And if somebody's overs and they can prove that they're bringing that capability in and we need that capability, it allows us to have a conversation and then make a really educated call on that. Sometimes budgets are just, they're there. But I think if we lean in with capability first, we tend to get the best result. Yeah, that makes sense. There's one question that I find quite interesting here, because it's also something that we have to deal with, as an external agency, is anyone has faced like a difficult, I guess, client or line manager that wouldn't necessarily want to bend the process, wouldn't necessarily would want to say, well, I don't care about the market, this is what it is. And have you, if you have had to deal with this, is there any comments on what to do and how you've managed to change the conversation? Jake, anything from you? Because you guys have grown so much.
Yeah, do you know what? I think the big thing that we had to do...
It could also be, sorry to interrupt you, it doesn't have to be about your job right now, but you've got the past experience on that, being an agency recruiter. So, anything that you've seen or that you've heard over the last few years that has worked or hasn't worked.
Yeah, I think the big thing that we've had to do is... it goes back to the education piece of understanding why the market has changed, what the drivers are. And I think if you can really somehow get home the reasons why things are different and why it's not quite working how it might have worked 6 months ago, and if people can understand that and buy into it, then you've got a much better chance of changing things. Yeah. I remember when we first changed our hiring process, our company loves Miro. Lexicon, we're big for the Miro boards and mapping things out and how things looked. We mapped that out as a hiring team. This is our current process. This is how many touch points there are. This is where the days we lose. This is the big red mark where we lose 40% of candidates. And this is what it could look like if we took that out. And this is how it looks like in a condensed form of 7 days versus your 21 days of what you're going to be turning things around in. And I think if you can have that, use the data or visuals, whatever you can do to leverage that conversation, then that's going to be a conversation you might have a chance of winning. Because if you're not going to do that, then yeah, it's just 1v1 and there might not be any give.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Anyone else? Any comments on that?
Probably can't add anything more than that. I think it's just more about keeping those channels of communication open and giving the hiring manager as much information around what you're seeing in the market, what when you're talking to you Julian and Sammy and Zach and what you're hearing, and just giving them the data that's available as well.
That makes sense.
I would also add to that, there's no harm in keeping it on the burner and giving it 5-10% of your attention and focusing on things you're actually going to fill. And then in 2, 3, 4 weeks, when that role hasn't been filled, they could change their mind pretty quick in that time frame as well. But those are maybe the dark arts.
That makes sense. There's one quick question. I think we've got time for 2 more. There's two questions there. That one that's a bit more serious than the other. Any thoughts on? Are you talking? A lot of candidates are talking about post-COVID and what happens then in terms of returning to the office, in terms of remote work, and in terms of that what it will be. We've all hired and placed a lot of people in the last 18 months in this world. Is it now, do you think now it's a given, like what happens next, in terms of, whether you're a consultancy and you distributed teams, the Call Me office is in Hawthorne at the moment, the Catch office is in the southeast suburbs. Do you think that's going to change anything in terms of the current stuff and the retention, and then how you're going to have to adapt to recruiting again, if you think that people are going to have to come back to the office?
So for us, COVID normal is normally maybe 1 or 2 days a week in the office or potentially at client site. That works really well for us because I think we really enjoy building those relationships, seeing people face to face. That day that the team are in the office, they're all crowded around the whiteboard. They're, you know, crunching the important stuff. And I think it's stuff that they actually really enjoy in their role.
Yeah.
If there's any companies out there that are going back to the office 5 days a week, please do let me know who they are, because all of their staff will be leaving pretty quickly.
Yep.
Hopefully you guys aren't about to tell me you'll be doing that, but I think that's just going to be the cut and thrust of how the market's going to go. I think candidates love the flexibility that the world isn't going to go back to how it was before. And I think people need to get with the program on that personally.
Yeah, absolutely. I will be very surprised about any sort of, I mean, I'm sure that there are going to be people that require their teams to end up back in the office. And I think the thing is, and like, definitely I would say in the past couple of months, that question has become more and more frequent. And I don't know if the others have had that experience as well. But the hybrid way of working is the way forward. I mean, I know, even if I just think about my own experience, I love being around people and I miss the team when I'm not in the office, but I am definitely way more efficient and get way more done, both at work and in personal life. Like, it's weird. I can't go anywhere on the weekend, but I love the fact that I can do my washing whilst I'm sitting at my desk doing work. But in regards to my work stuff, I get way more done because it's just less distractions. But absolutely, we know culturally and from that connection and collaboration and communication, you miss stuff if you're not building those in-person relationships with people. And even just little things like not remembering what, you know, the person who I speak with every single day's coffee order is, like little things like that, that you miss out on, or even just, you know, having a glass of wine at a pub lunch and things like that. So yeah, that 1 or 2 days, that hybrid approach is definitely the way forward.
I just have one thing to add on top of that, and I agree, Alice, like very much with both what Peter and Jacob said. And I don't think I'm letting any cats out of the bag. But so we're currently going through a relocation program for Catch. So we're currently in Bentley East, and we don't know where right now we're going to end up. But we went out to our staff and we went through a survey and we asked them a whole heap of questions about what their preferred style would be. And we were trying to get under the bonnet of what are those moments that are really important. And we kind of said, where do you like to have large meetings? Where do you like to have medium meetings? Where do you like to do your quiet, you know, crunch data type of work? When do you want to be in the office? What do you want the office to look like? Like, what are those moments where, you know, you're starting off on a new project? So get together, get that strategy work done. We don't think our office is going to be seat, desk, sit, plonk there for the whole day. And it might be this, again, what does hybrid mean? It's so many things, right? It's so personalized for people. The only thing that I'll say is that we're unlikely to go full remote because we're so much about, we're forming our culture, this new culture, that we need to have this connectedness, and it needs to be beyond just virtual.
Agreed. And it's something that we hear across all our clients. You know, no one wants to go full remote. There's only, well, that's not, I'm not lying, some of them do, but they're tiny businesses, and they really want to give people the option, which is quite interesting. We'll wrap it up with one last question, which was about online games, and I think, you know, whether we're in, I mean, talent acquisition is different in people and culture. We're very conscious of that, but if anyone has any fun Slack hacks or tips to share in terms of online games you've had, maybe with your teams or with the people that you're hiring for the other teams. A few people wanted to hear about that. Anyone?
What platforms are we using to engage with team members? Is that what?
No. Like, I think someone was asking about fun online games or anything that you've done online.
Also activities and stuff that we do.
Yeah. As in, you know, how you keep in touch with your teams, whether it's and it could nearly be used as part of, you know, recruitment strategies, I guess, if you include people early on in the piece. But anything that's worked better than other. I know the singing happy birthday with 50 people is extremely, it's just a fantastic thing. I've been part of it, but anything else that anyone has used and
So
a bit of fun?
I saw someone put in the chat Kahoot. So recently we did a kids trivia and we started using Kahoot for that. I regularly in our Friday night drinks host trivia. So and we do a lot of music themed ones because the team really like that. So like last week was pet themed as an example, and it takes 10-15 minutes, but it's just a little bit of fun just to break the day up. We've done things like kids Q&A where the Colmio kids came on and we asked them all questions like, what does mum or dad do for work? And it was interesting to hear some of the answers just for a bit of fun. We also did a work from home bingo. So we did like a grid that had all the different challenges, like just silly, like some serious, but some like mostly silly things like, show up to a meeting wearing your pajamas and things like that, just to break up the day and have a bit of fun with it as well. And that was very early on when we went remote. So to try and sort of build that up a bit as well. You Don't Know Jack as well is one that we've done a few times with some of the team as well, which is an online game as well, which is a bit of fun.
We've used the same thing, and it's super fun. And I think outside of all the things that Peter's just said, there's also some other things we're trying to do from a connectedness perspective. We had a wellbeing session with the organisation last week. We got Benny Button in, and they did this wellbeing session where everyone got to interact online, which was great. We had great feedback, and we had an email from our MD come out today. So next week for Are You OK Day, he's pretty much said, everyone try and get every meeting out of your calendar, except for obviously there's going to be some critical ones, and then call each other and have a chat, not about work. So not just the fun is meant to be there as well, but it's also like using those types of things and getting the permission by our leadership team to do those things is really important.
That's great. That's really good.
Yeah, nice. Just to add a couple of things in there. We've done a virtual escape room, and we did that as teams. That worked really, really well. I think we came second by about 30 seconds. I'm not dirty about it at all. We have done we've done those. They send out the painting class stuff, and you all sort of set up your easel out in the garden and do that. Next week we've got a pottery one where we're all going to be making clay pots or something. Those types of things where you get a package and crack on. They're obviously a little bit more expensive, but they really do bring stuff to life as well. And it almost feels a bit more like real life. Yeah. But yeah, definitely using Kahoots and stuff like that. I suppose the only other thing, we do a monthly board games night where we're in the office. We've managed to take that online. So we've got like a Discord channel and we'll do like tabletop games or something like that. So yeah, those are a few things that we do too, but always keen to hear the other stuff that people are doing. And I've actually jotted down the kids quiz one because we'll be doing that in the next couple of weeks for sure. That's a really good idea.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So one of the things, sorry, Julian, that we've introduced quite recently as well is one of the new team members who started approached us and said, "Can I do a stretch and move session with the team?" And so like 3 times a week. She puts the Zoom link out, and for 15 minutes we get on, we stretch, we move, and yeah, it's slowly growing, which is and that comes back to that. Try something. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then swap it out.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much, everyone. I think there's just plenty to take away from the presentation and the conversation. This was recorded. It'll be onto our YouTube channel maybe tomorrow, most likely on Monday. We'll make sure to share the link with everyone who attended today. Continue the conversation on the YouTube page. I think it's always a good place to rewatch and hear something that you may have missed today and ask another question. We'll make sure to keep an eye on it and answer as many questions as we possibly can.
Jump on the meetup page as well, guys. The Product Hackers meetup page, so you can actually have discussion on there. So if you want to keep the conversation going, network with people, share your LinkedIn on there, feel free to do that.
Perfect. And then hopefully, hopefully the edition number 9 can be done in a venue with real people. Until then, just have fun and try not to go too crazy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night,
you, guys.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
all.
you.
Bye bye.
Good night.